Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Since we last recorded, the Cavs split their games against the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat. Disappointing loss against the Heat. Just did not come to play in that one. And joining me today to discuss that and to talk about their defense as of late, my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I mean, I think we're definitely like, I feel like the season has a couple like things that you might define as dog days. I think we're in the dog days of the end of the season of Q4, so to speak. You know, there's 10 games left.
Q4 for sure.
And it just kind of feels like we're not gonna get a great picture as to what's the team is. You know, like I thought they played better against Orlando than Kenny seemed to, for what it's worth. He was very frustrated. I don't think his post game comments about defense were based on one game, but I thought they were fine against Orlando, and obviously very, very bad for 3 of the 4 quarters against Miami. Down a lot of guys and down some legs. They just didn't look very sharp at all physically in that game. And it's just this weird situation where right when you think the corner's going to get turned and Jarrett's on his way back and, oh, hey, we got Max back, then, Jalen sprains his toe and Dean gets hurt in warm-ups. Like, come on.
Was ridiculously unfortunate, right? And for a team that's trying to see what it looks like if they can finally get everybody healthy, right, to get everybody into the lineup, obviously it made sense to not play Max Strus against Miami, second night of a back-to-back. I thought some of what we saw in that Miami game was very much second night of a back-to-back, right? Like I thought that could explain some of it. I disagree a little bit with your statement that you disagree with Kenny with Orlando. I did think that defensive performance was really, really rough. I actually thought that was one of the areas of improvement for the Miami game, where at least the effort level on the defensive end of the floor, I thought that came up. A lot of the same issues were there. I still wouldn't call it a good defensive performance, but I think the compete level, at least on that end of the floor, ended up being a whole lot better. The Orlando game, I thought it was an appropriate time for him to kind of call them out because they need to have a higher level of engagement on the defensive end of the floor in order for them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve this season. Like, I think no question about it, that's absolutely needed here. But I've seen people really dissect the comments after the Miami game where he was saying, I was fine with the process, even down 20 at halftime. I was good with all of that. I almost felt like that was a situation where he's like, I got my message in with the Orlando game, and even though there's things we still need to clean up with the Miami game, I don't need to
call the guys out 2 nights in a row.
Not only do I not need to call them out 2 nights in a row, the effort level did improve, at least on the defensive end of the floor. I think some of the same breakdowns were there, and we can get into those a little bit later, but at least the effort level was better. It was a game where the Cavs struggled on the offensive end of the floor, but I didn't feel like they looked lost offensively. It wasn't a game that caused a lot of concern for me, I guess is what I'm really getting to.
Yeah, I don't know if any of these games can cause a lot of concern for me because it just doesn't feel like the team is like, I mean, the team just isn't playing great, and it's so weird because they're 14-5 with James Harden in the lineup. That's a 60-win pace. So like I if I have concerns, maybe it's just that I feel like they should be playing better than they are. But like because of all the guys that are out, it's just so hard to like sit and be like, well, the Evan Mobley, Thomas Bryant minutes are going better than expected. Like, yeah, they are, but it's just hard to like take much away from it because I think something's probably gone wrong if those are lineups we're seeing in a postseason game. Though I do think they're better equipped for one of their bigs to be out than they were in years past because of those minutes. But yeah, so it's just, I just feel like I'm a little bit in no man's land with this team. There are some lineups that I watch and I go, interesting. Like the James, Donovan, Sam, Max, Evan lineup. That's a good lineup.
Yeah.
That's a lineup that can really, really hurt teams and is really, really hard to guard. And like that might be something I think we see them roll with when healthy. But yeah, right now it just feels like an incomplete team playing incomplete basketball.
Well, the funny thing is, right, when you make the James Harden trade at the trade deadline, it does change the makeup of your roster to some extent, right? Like we have seen Don take a step back in the regular season sometimes, right? Like I think last season, one of the things we gave him a lot of credit for was taking a step back to really give Darius the reins to the offense in the regular season, right? I think he helped empower both Darius and Evan Mobley. So that's when it came to those year-end conversations when we were talking about who the most impactful Cavs were. We said, the numbers do point to Darius being the more impactful offensive player and Evan obviously being the catalyst of the defense. But you do have to give credit to Donovan for kind of taking that step back and empowering them. Now he's paired next to James Harden, who, second night of a back-to-back has been through everything that you can be through as an NBA player, with the exception of winning a championship. That's obviously going to be his focus, right? So to not see the same level of like buy-in as we saw last year when this team was just rolling the competition, right? Like for all the faults that they had after the All-Star break, they still had a better record and net rating than the Indiana Pacers did after the All-Star break, right? Like everyone
the
talks
darlings
about
of the post-break
those
league.
red hot Pacers that really, came on at the right time, and that's why they won in the playoffs, right? Like everyone wanted to like ascribe some morals to that. The Cavs, even taking a step back, were playing better than that. It's a little bit different now. So it leaves me in the space where kind of similar to those LeBron Cavs, where it's like, all right, well, the character of this team, the two on-court leaders of this team are guys that are going to flip the switch to some extent, and everyone else is going to take cues from that. I'll always have some concerns because I do think from an offensive standpoint, I trust them to be able to flip the switch and for this to be able to click. On the defensive end of the floor, I have concerns about the personnel to begin with. So when you're not making the most of the games that you have and to kind of reestablish defensive communication to get on the same page there, that's going to amplify some of those concerns. So it doesn't dash my hopes of what this season could be, but from a buy-in standpoint, it's tough for me to kind of ramp myself up emotionally the same way I would have been this time last year.
Yeah, it's just like it's hard to puff your chest out, I think, almost more than anything, like.
And I love to do that.
Yeah, I know you do. But like this team just isn't winning games convincingly. They're losing games relatively convincingly. I mean, I think I saw Miami went 10 of 11 at the rim in the fourth quarter of last night's game, and we're just not really seeing it. They beat the heck out of Dallas by 33 points, but that was 13 days ago. And they haven't had a double digit
to Dallas since then, right?
Yeah, and lost immediately after, and haven't had a double digit win since, despite playing some of the dregs of the league. And then you have a 10-point loss to Dallas. And you have a 17-point loss to Miami. So it's like you look at the record, 4-2 in their last 6, and you go, okay, they must be playing pretty well, but like you're just not really seeing them take control of the game. And I think that's probably the most concerning part of it right now is like they're just kind of out there, and and I do think this is probably a good time to pivot to Jarrett Allen. If you're cool with it, because there's some reporting out there that the Cavs are hoping he'll be back for tomorrow's game, also against Miami. He has been upgraded to questionable.
We do have a status report there.
And I just kind of don't think this team works without him. In any like I think he has become so crucial to what they do, because of like on one hand, yes, like you trade DeAndre so you get a little bit smaller in trading for Keon and Dennis, so you really you only have 3 power forward or bigger sized guys you really want to play in Dean, Jarrett, and Evan. So just losing one of them on its own base is a bummer. And then you also look at the personnel you bring in. You bring in Keon and Dennis and James, and all three of those guys are gamblers. They like flying around and making kind of chaotic choices. And if you don't have 48 minutes of stable rim protection to protect that, then you're going to have these huge stretches where the defense just kind of falls off a cliff. And then on offense, like, this team is now a pick and roll team.
Yeah.
They just are. Like, Dennis needs to run pick and roll to be an effective player as your backup point guard. James is a top 5 pick and roll player in the history of the sport.
Yeah.
So you watch that Miami game, and it's just a lot of side to side stuff. And if you're not hitting shots and Donovan and James aren't exerting the amount of energy required or don't have their legs under them to just beat their man on their own, you get this kind of stagnation, especially if Evan's going to have the game he had. And we'll talk about that later, because obviously a hot topic coming out of that. But like, I just think we've landed in a spot where it's funny because Jarrett is obviously one of the guys that teams are, that around the league you hear like, maybe they need to move off to make Evan the full-time 5 and all this stuff. And it's like, he suddenly is like kind of the linchpin to the identity of the team in some ways, and you really feel it. And I know that's probably an overstatement, but like, you just really feel his absence right now from a personnel perspective, because they don't really have anyone who's going to do the things he does.
And I think it's even more important when you do have the pairing of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden on the defensive end of the floor, right? Like, I think I do believe that there can be a different level of postseason buy-in when it comes to defensive attentiveness and point of attack. And I also think to be completely fair to them, some of the sample size that we have of the two guards together is Donovan playing through the groin injury, right? Or not being at 100% health. So, that all factors into the equation. But when you look at it, they have a 118.4 defensive rating when those two share the court so far this season. The only teams with a defensive rating worse than that are the Kings, Jazz, and Wizards. Like, it's not great. It's 4 points worse than the DG and Donovan defensive rating for this season. And we know that DG was playing on one wheel for a lot of that, right? So I think it almost gets back to what people assumed was an issue with the backcourt in the past, where, hey, you need to have both guards or both bigs out there to cover for it, when the numbers didn't really back that up. They were still pretty fine with just one of the bigs. I do think that it's really important, at least for a regular season standpoint, to have both of those guys out there. And I think, to your point, I think it's just as important on the offensive end. I think what Jarrett Allen as a screen setter is able to do to make those guys' lives easier is incredibly important. And he puts Evan Mobley in an offensive role that I think he's more comfortable in, right? Like, he is getting more volume right now, but I just always think that he excels when he's able to play a power forward. I think that's part of why, even the minutes alongside Thomas Bryant have largely been a positive. So I agree with you. I said it a couple of weeks ago, and I continue to believe that the one stable identity that we can kind of count on going into the postseason is the two bigs. I think that gives you a floor on the defensive end of the floor, not just when they're together, but being able to split them up as well, right? Like, you look at the on-court defensive rating for
48 minutes of coverage, baby.
Yeah, you have 48 minutes of coverage, right? Like, Evan Mobley can do a lot. If you look at the defensive rating when he's on the court, it's just over 110. It would be the 4th best defense in the league. Cavs are ranked 15th defensively this season. He is a floor raiser on that end of the floor. Jarrett Allen is a floor raiser on that end of the floor. The on-off splits defensively are just about the same. So when you can have both of them, it does cover up for the fact that you are lacking with perimeter defenders. And it also gives those perimeter defenders a little bit more confidence, where they don't feel like they have to help out as much on drives. And I really do feel like some of what we're seeing on the defensive end is guys helping almost unnecessarily in a lot of these spots because they don't have a lot of confidence in the integrity of the overall defense.
If I can be a little critical here, though, is there's overhelping because you are worried about your teammate being able to contain his man, or overhelping because you want to see if you can make a chaos play. And then there's loitering in no man's land.
There's a lot of that too.
Where you'll see a help defender just kind of take 3 steps away from his man, but not be in a material position to impact a shot or a drive or an attack from the man with the ball, and it's just a 1 pass away open 3. I'm like, right. I'm sorry, that's not scheme, and that's not like a choice. It's the absence of a choice, Yeah. So like, while there is definitely there are some plays where you do see some overhelping. Like I think it's the thoughtfulness right now just isn't there on the defensive end of the floor, and that's really where, because even when they're playing hard, they can just get killed because they're not applying the level of mental care to every defensive possession that you'd like to see.
And sometimes it's just bad choices too, or a choice that's the correct one made at the wrong time, right? And sometimes the difference between the right and wrong play on the defensive end of the floor is, did you make it a second early or a second late, right? Like or on time, right? I think that can make a big difference. And there's instances where, in that Miami game, James Harden's getting posted up and someone's coming in to dig and help out there, and it leads to an easy kick out 3. That's a situation
the one thing you can really count on him for.
You can really count on him in those spots. And worst case scenario, he gets, hooked, someone spins around on him. Evan Mobley is there to provide that help defense from the paint. We don't need that to be a home run play where, hey, I dug in, I got a steal, we're going fast break the other direction. You can have enough confidence in what your, the structural integrity of your defense is by just staying to your man and not giving them an easy pass for an open 3, 1 pass away, right? And I think some of that can be a lack of familiarity. But if I could project, understanding that I am not in that locker room, I am not at practice or anything like that, to me, it kind of reads as, we know that we're struggling defensively, so everyone's trying to make a play, right? Like we're coming off a game where our coach called us out for a lack of effort. I'm trying to make a home run play. I don't necessarily feel confident in what we're doing on that end of the floor, so I'm going to try to do a little bit too much. I think that is an epidemic right now where there's just too many guys trying to do too much, and
they've got the surfing lesson and forgetting Sarah Marshall problem.
Right. Do less. Less, right?
Well, now you're not doing anything at all.
Right, and the problem is sometimes these decisions are being made at March basketball speed, right? Like I think that came up in the Miami game on the offensive end of the floor, where it didn't look like they were lost. I liked what they ran. I thought for the most part it was the right decisions, but it was played at a speed that was going to yield 12 wide open shots rather than the regular 18 that they get, right? And I think that same kind of thing can be true of the intent that they're playing with on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. They're just not really even when they're in sync, they're not in sync from an intensity perspective, and it's they just haven't quite found it. It's a weird stretch to watch as a fan and as someone who's trying to make sense of what's going on, because like you're just not really seeing them put consistent games together.
Well, especially when we know that teams move fastest when everyone's in sync, and Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together, so your workflow is like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace.
All right, let's talk about Evan Mobley. Hot topic coming out of the game last night. It's probably his worst game of the season. I would say it's that or the Toronto game from earlier in the year, where he put up 7 points and 9 boards in his 35 minutes and a 13-point loss. but I think those are probably your two contenders. Oh, he had the 4-pointer against Houston. Never mind, that was a disaster. That
Yeah.
was such a disaster for everyone. I can
It was
barely.
his worst game since returning from the calf injury.
That's fair.
And to me, it was disappointing because I thought the Orlando game, I thought he played fantastic, right? So tale of two nights for Evan Mobley, where the game against Orlando did not miss a shot, right? 19 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. I thought he was terrific. I thought he was the lone person playing good, impactful defense on the night. A couple times where I'm still like, Evan, you don't have to leave your feet in this spot. You're getting fouls a little too quickly because you're trying to do a little bit too much here, and we desperately need you to stay on the floor, and not only to stay on the floor, but to be able to play like you're not in foul trouble, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that is such an important thing. In that game, I was sitting there being like, okay, he didn't miss a shot. He goes 8 for 8 from the field. I thought he looked aggressive and like he wanted the ball, and they weren't necessarily consistently getting him the ball. I thought that they let Evan down to some extent. The Miami game was interesting because I didn't get to watch the majority of it live. I kind of came in the fourth quarter, and then I had to watch it after the fact that night. And I was sitting there looking at the field goal attempts. I'm like, back-to-back nights where we didn't get Evan the ball. And then I watched the game. And what I saw was a guy that did not look like he wanted the basketball. There were plenty of times where the ball got to him and Miami sent two to the ball. They were trying to make him be a playmaker, get it out of his hands. And I thought he was largely making the right read in those spots. But other times he's just kind of drifting around off ball, did not look like he wanted it. And the best way to get the attention of a playmaker is to move with intent and look like you want the basketball. Playmakers, when they have a live dribble in their hands, or even when they don't, the best way for them to see you in the corner of your eye is for you to make a sharp cut to move with intent.
It's like wearing like a
Playmakers see
high vis
movement.
vest, like
Right,
a
right.
little bit of light flashes off of it, and you're seen.
And James Harden is someone that is going to find you in those spots. I did not think that was the way that Evan played. I thought it was a game that he didn't play with the type of impact or intent on the defensive end of the floor as well. I thought this was one of the rare games this month, really, where I didn't really feel him on either end of the court. I will give him a pass on this one because I think he has been playing so well as of late. But I just thought that this was a flat performance. And outside of saying you got to be better and you got to play like you have the rest of the month, I don't have a whole lot to add here.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough just to say played bad, need to play better. But that's what happened in this game. I will say just a little trend. I don't think because we didn't talk about the Orlando game yet. I don't think it's good that a guy can go 16 of 18 in 2 games. That is as talented as Evan Mobley, because that means you needed to find him for more shots. And he needs to demand more shots. Like, I almost am like, it's weird. It's like bizarro Jarrett, where like if Jarrett's 10 of 10 from the field, I'm like, hell yeah, great game, Jarrett. But if Evan's 10 of 10 from the field, I'm like, why is he not 14 of 19? Like, because like that is like, and like that is kind of the probably like maybe indicative of like the difference in like the way I talk about those guys' ceilings, and the way I want them to impact our like overall offense, and the way I want them to eat usage. So like I did want to note that like while he was so phenomenal against Orlando, like it was another kind of second half where he stopped getting the ball. And I was hoping that the James Harden effect would help clean that up.
Right, like that was part of the calculus, right? Like, let's kind of test this theory as someone that consistently feeds the bigs. And I do think that there's multiple dynamics at play here. I do think some of this is like in the Miami game. I think that's more so on Evan than the Orlando. I thought Orlando, he flashed, he was trying to get the ball, and there were just times where he wasn't found. I think one of the differences between like that Harden and Allen run, where there was a lot of obvious chemistry and stuff like that, is it was simplified for James because Donovan missed time, right? And I think he's figuring out a feeling out process of when can I be assertive, When can I be a playmaker? When do I defer to Donovan Mitchell? And I think sometimes that's going to lead to these lulls where the bigs aren't necessarily as involved, right? I think we saw at times when both of them were playing with Jarrett Allen where Jarrett got it going and he wasn't being fed the same way he was before. I think we've seen it at times with Evan Mobley. I know we talked about it recently, but I've been really impressed with the chemistry of James Harden and Evan Mobley. I think that they really got something going
some
there.
Stuff out.
They've definitely figured things out. I think that there is a figuring out process still with James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, and that is always going to have some effect on how involved the big men are. So, that's something I'm keeping an eye on. But I do gotta say, like, one of the biggest positives for me from this back-to-back is the play of Donovan Mitchell. I think that he looked healthier with how he was moving around, right? Like both games, he shot very well from the floor. I thought from a physical standpoint, he looks like himself.
Yeah. And whenever I did get frustrated, they were generally lapses of the mental variety, not the you couldn't move variety.
Right. It's mistakes that we have seen before, right? Like you're just things that'll pop up within his game more so than, hey, is that groin there? That didn't look like he had the same kind of pop. So from that standpoint, I think that's really important because that does give you an opportunity if he's feeling right physically to iron out some of that stuff to continue to work on the chemistry with Harden, because I think the chemistry with those two is more of a question for me than Harden's ability to play with the bigs. Donovan, I think, like from a chemistry standpoint, he's where he's going to get to with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. I don't think that there's a lot of kind of low-hanging fruit left there. So it's about ironing out the guard play and how that tandem feeds off of each other so that it can work in an ecosystem with both bigs, right? So that's part of why I'm so hopeful that Jarrett will be back on Friday, because I think it's really important for, the core four to get those reps together.
Yeah. I mean, while you're sad to see no Dean, no Tyson in that game on Friday, they're already ruled out. It's just not what I need to find out right now. And I need to find out if those four can, become destroyers of worlds together. If the double bigs can help
that was
protect.
Part of why I didn't. That's part of why I didn't feel bad about the. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah, man.
that was bad. That's part of why I didn't feel that bad about the Miami game, because you're missing 4 of your rotation guys, right? And 2 of the 3 bigs that we feel good about in Dean and Jarrett, right? That's a tough order on the second night of a back-to-back.
I need to see Evan and Jarrett prove to me that we can protect Donovan and James on the defensive end, and I need to see Jarrett and James be able to anchor lineups, and Donovan and Evan be able to anchor lineups that will give me confidence that we got 48 good minutes against anybody. Because right now I'm not confident in 48 good minutes, not because I don't think it could be. It's just we haven't really seen it over any extended stretch. And we're so it has been kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing. But man, Sam's still playing great. There are guys I believe in on around the periphery. Max I think is showing some good minutes. But
he's still got concrete feet on the defensive end of the floor. You notice that. But hey, some ups there. That putback dunk that he had against Orlando was surprising, right? And it's funny. Part of this too is there isn't a larger contrast in the NBA of kind of an approach for an offense than Orlando and Miami. Orlando is about as conventional as it gets on the offensive end of the floor. Miami is about as unconventional as it gets, right? And if you're going into a playoff series against Miami, you're able to game plan for it a little bit more. But it's the second night of a back-to-back, and you're coming off that Orlando game. That's a little bit more tricky as well, particularly when you are down that personnel. But I do think why I continue to focus on the defense is, again, I think it's a tough question. I think, even if I believed in absolutely all of the personnel on the defensive end of the floor, I think assembling a team this late in the year or shaking up a team this late in the year is going to make things difficult, right? I think figuring things out on the offensive end of the floor is a whole lot easier, right? Because a lot of teams are going to run a lot of the same plays, or at least the actions are something that, hey, I can relate to this because when I see this type of movement from my teammate, I know to get them the ball here, and that plug and play movement shooter is here, and we're going to run these various different things offensively. Defense, so much of it is how much can I trust in my teammate? What do I need to communicate to them? What do they need to communicate to me? How am I going to communicate it? Right? Like, it's such a feeling out process, and I think it takes so much more time to figure out than offense. That is going to be kind of my biggest fear and concern going into the playoffs, because the funny thing is, you look back at these last few years, defense hasn't been what's killed us in the playoffs. It's been offense, even against the Indiana Pacers, where there were certainly stretches of those games where defense was an issue. For the series, it was not the issue. It was the Cavs offense, right? Like, their defense performed better than just about every team but OKC against Indiana. The offense just kind of fell flat. Carter, do you feel like this might be the year where we do have some legitimate defensive issues in the playoffs?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the answer is how healthy are the two bigs?
Okay, fair.
Because and that's like where like
such a floor.
Part of me just feels kind of stupid, being like, why isn't the attention to detail good enough on March 25th? Because if we do all this hand wringing and then they just pay better attention in a playoff series, like, does that make this stupid that we were doing this and worrying about this? Maybe.
I'd love for that to be the case.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, I'm gonna spit this theory out, and you can tell me if it sticks or not. Like, it's not like the Cavs run a crazy complicated defense. No. Like, their responsibilities are not, like, they are not running. They have not run a scheme that is high degree of difficulty but high ceiling. They tend to focus on raising the floor. Switching is a floor raising defense where your responsibilities just aren't as high mentally, because you're mostly just going to give up the switch and try to keep your shell intact. And that's still what they do for the most part. Obviously when you get into rotation, everything's out the window, and you gotta make quick decisions and things like that. But, like, I don't know if I'm seeing this team, like, fall apart in rotation as much as they're falling apart at the core principle. Like, they're artificially lowering their floor with these lapses. So it's, like, hard for me to, like, feel like, well, they can't do it in a playoff setting, because it's like, it's just so hard to evaluate, I feel.
I think the best contrast for that is looking at the start of the season, right? Where the Cavs had one of the highest pickup points defensively in the NBA, right? Like, they were applying full court pressure in a way that they hadn't really before. They were leading the league in deflections, and they were playing this really aggressive gambling style of defense. And we had questions about, hey, do we have the personnel for this? Like, this kind of defensive scheme, it feels like we have over-indexed from too much of in the shell last season to maybe we're trying a little too hard to be the Indiana Pacers from a disruption standpoint. I don't feel like that's the case anymore. I agree with you. I think that they are largely playing a scheme that works for the personnel, and it's been effort and execution more than anything. And sometimes the effort's there. The execution is, at an appropriate level, and there's just miscommunications, right? Like, I think some of that is always going to mix in. And when the opponents are hitting shots at a high rate, sometimes good defense is going to feel like bad. So you're going to see a couple possessions in a quarter where there's miscommunications, and you're like, man, that looks really terrible. And then you have good defense on a couple plays, but they hit the shot. And from a fan experience, you're going to end up feeling worse about the defense than is probably reality. I think there's maybe some of that, but I do think, just from a personnel standpoint, this team isn't as equipped to kind of hold up on the perimeter as they were last year.
No, they're not. I mean, you can look at the personnel, and even a guy like Keon Ellis, who's been so fun, is not a perimeter stopper. That's not his game. He is not a lockdown defender. That's not. And they just, they're playing a lot of guys who can get turned on.
Yeah.
Darius even was a guy who got shot over more than he got blown by. In one of those things.
Your height and wingspan doesn't matter as much if you aren't in front of them, right? Like,
sure.
And I think that is something that we're seeing, right? Like, to your point with Keon, if you look at the Basketball Index perimeter isolation tracking data right now, it doesn't rate out as a net positive. Like, he is basically break even, but he's barely negative. And you look at the guys this year that rate as positive. We only have a handful of them. So Jalen Tyson, Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, and Dennis Schroeder. And Schroeder's not rating out as a big positive, right? Like, so, and in terms of percentile, this actually is probably a good way to break it down. Keon, who's barely a negative, is the 68th percentile, right? So people always see 68%. And if you're like me, you're like, hey, that's better than I did in college here. Like, the 68%.
Justin, do we need to talk about your college career? 68 is very bad.
I'm kidding. I'm going for comedy here, Carter. Come on. But like, to give you an idea, that's kind of where the break-even point is, right? Like, the majority of the league kind of struggles, or at least is somewhat of a net negative in perimeter isolation defense. Jalen Tyson, 92nd percentile, Dean 90th, Sam 84th, and Schroeder at 81st, right? Last year, your net positives on defense, you had a whole lot more of them. DeAndre Hunter was 87th. Isaac Okoro was 86th. DG was 85th. Javonte was 85th. Dean Wade was 84th. Max Strus was 81st.
You guys want to know a little thing about Justin Rowan? On our rundown, he has Javonte in the 85th percentile and Green in the 85th percentile. He actually wrote Javonte down twice. I'm proud of you for not slipping up on the pod. You just skipped right past it. I didn't
say it, but you still had to call me out for it.
It was really funny.
Accountability is the best ability.
This is the kind of 68th percentile rundown planning.
Attention to detail, never the strong suit here. But like, the majority of those names are not on the roster this year. Max Strus obviously has physical limitations, so he can't really play to that level.
Is he even in the database yet, by the way?
I think he might be. I would need to kind of pull that back up, but probably not. I don't think that he would fall under most filters. The sample would definitely
be insufficient to actually care.
Or at the very least insignificant, right? And James is at the 60th percentile when I looked at it last. Donovan's down at the 34th. The only kind of Cav close to him is Tyrese Proctor at 32nd.
Wasn't Donnie in the 60th last year, somewhere in there?
Oh well. Not last year, but actually at kind of I think it was like December-ish this year, he had bumped up to that. So it's kind of come back down to earth. So we just don't have a lot of guys that hold up in those situations, right? And to be fair, when you're talking about pure isolation possessions, you don't see tons of that in the NBA.
Real quick, because you didn't mention either Evan or Jarrett. Were you just looking at wing defenders? When you're
they don't rate out as net positives for like the league. Like, they would rate out positionally probably like above average for their position. But in terms of like what this stat rates is not only, does your opponent make or miss the shot in the situation? It's how often do you get them to give the ball up, right? Like, kind of that shot suppression. Do you impact the shot quality in those ways? Bigs are never going to rate out as above average in those types of situations. So, it's a different group from a personnel standpoint. And I still do believe that there is another level of buy-in that you can see come playoffs. But I do think it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. I think.
Can I make a little devil's advocation point, though? One thing that's nice, you look at Jalen, Dean, and Sam as three of your better defending role players on the season. You can build the boat out of a 7-man rotation if you really have to. So and Kenny, all but threatened the team after that Orlando win, saying like, hey, the guys who guard will be the ones who get to play. Like, if you need to do 7-man rotation with 10 spare minutes to an eighth because you're not getting the defensive metrics you need out of out of Max or some of the other players, like you've got the option. You have the option. I'm not saying,
and even Keon like being at break even, like you can get away with that.
I'm fine with break even Keon because of all the chaos plays he generates on defense.
Myself as well.
So like, it'll be a real money where your mouth is situation. But the nice thing about, Jalen and Sam at their best specifically, and Dean at his best, is like, ideally those are guys who are not ruining your offense by being out there either. So like, and I do believe that a lineup with the top 4 guys should perform well. Enough.
And part of the recent struggles is Jarrett is out, right? Jalen Tyson, when he was playing through that ankle injury, so that's going to impact his effectiveness.
Which I'm worried about the toe for a return, because that one's hard to play on.
Absolutely, right. Dean had been dealing with that ankle as well, right? The ankle that he re-injured in pregame warm-up, so that's going to have an impact on their overall effectiveness too. So when you're limited in terms of the number of bodies that are capable of doing it at the best of times, that just puts you in a really, really tough position. So I do want to clarify though, like when I'm expressing these concerns, I don't think like any of this is a fatal flaw necessarily, but this is the type of thing that can take a 5 or 6 game series into a 6 or 7 game series. And anytime you let a series go further, you leave yourself vulnerable to things like shot variance, right? Like you can have a night where you generated perfectly good looks and they just didn't go down.
Would you pick this Cavs team to sweep anyone right now? That they might play in the first round?
I think yes, right? Because I think they could sweep Toronto. I think
but
they
would
could
you pick
sweep
them?
Maybe against Toronto, just out of hate. But my brain probably not. I would probably
I have this gut feeling that whoever
give every team a 5.
I have a gut feeling that I'm going to be picking Cavs in 6 in the first round. Pretty much no matter who they play, just because
if it's Orlando, I would say 6.
I think they're going to need some time. I even like this isn't just like a habits or that's not like a sneak diss as much as like we just haven't seen this group get properly tested when they're giving it their all and at full focus, and I think there's going to be some kinks to work out.
Yep.
It's weird. I think it's more likely they take beat Detroit in 5 in a weird way than like some of these teams. Just because like if they get through a playoff series and get themselves in rhythm, I think the ceiling of this team is so high that
it's like a month and a half away, man.
I know.
Could be a totally different team, right?
It's just a weird. I feel so weird about this team, Justin, and I'm almost wondering if I need to like start putting myself into a LeBron Cavs mindset, where it's like the regular season just isn't going to mean a tremendous amount. It's not going to be terribly, there won't be a lot of correlation, I think, in a lot of ways, because to what we're seeing now to what we're gonna see in a month, and that makes it really hard to analyze.
I get what you're saying. The reason I can't get there yet is because I haven't seen this team win more than 1 game in the second round, right? And
I don't mean like from an expectations standpoint. I just
mean like an ability to flip the switch. And like, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't know if I had that level of confidence even going in 2015, right? Like when
that's kind of what I mean, though.
Yeah, like that first round in 2015, even though it was a sweep, each of those games was pretty close. Could have gone either way, right? You think back to the second round, David Black calling a timeout that wasn't there, right? Like if you get a technical there, you might have gone down 3-1 to the Bulls, right? Like you might be in that type of situation where you're going to need some luck or some time for this to all gel. It's a tricky thing, man.
Yeah. And we're just not gonna, get to know. By the way, Charlotte's beating the pants off of New York. This is a crazy run. I just can't believe how weird the East is. Like,
I would not pick a sweep against Charlotte. That team is
no
going to shoot
shot,
the hell out of the
brother.
ball. Yeah.
I'm so thrilled we don't have to play them. I don't want to deal with that.
You might be speaking too soon, man. That bottom, 5 through 10.
They're only 2 losses back of the 5 seed Atlanta Hawks, which, by the way, that's crazy too.
Yeah, that is nuts, right? And I do, if I could have my way, I would like to stay on this side of the bracket, right? And on the one hand, you could say,
And the Hawks have won 14 of their last 15 games, bro. What is going on in this league?
It's a little fugazi if you look at the schedule, but that's
we had a fugazi schedule, and we are not 14-1.
Yeah, but they got something to prove, man. Like this team clearly does not feel that same sense of urgency right now.
I'm just saying, the league's the league feels like it's a little drunk right now in the month of March.
You know what they're doing? They're making it hard for podcasters to pretend that 22 teams are tanking, right? All the lotto teams are tanking. The play-in teams are stealth tankers. The teams with that don't have home court are also sneaky potential tankers.
Don't get me worked up, brother.
Oh, I absolutely love to. I just love that every single night there's always a winner and a tanker in the NBA. Apparently, it's
disgusting.
It's a lot of fun.
Disgusting.
But you're right. I think it's going to take time. And like for me, I always try to find what is the optimistic side of what I believe realistic is. And for me, I think it's this team can figure it out. I just think it's going to take time to gel. I think there's going to be bumps along the roads, and we will ultimately see, can they flip the switch and can they get into the appropriate gear at the appropriate time come playoffs?
Yeah. I'm excited to see the top four guys whole again. That's for damn sure.
Crossing my fingers that we see a healthy Cavs tomorrow, at least when it comes to those guys. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.